I love fat bikes. I've owned a whole bunch of them over the years, and a fat bike's usually my go-to bike year-round. I'm also always trying to get other people to try them out. There are a ton of different kinds of mountain bikes out there, but anytime a friend reaches out about wanting to get a bike, I usually tell them to get a fat bike. That might seem like a weird recommendation, but let's talk about why your next bike should be a fat bike. Number 1, you can ride a fat bike all year. Do you live somewhere that it snows? I do. Fat bikes were originally built for riding on snow and sand, but these big tires give you the float and traction you need on soft terrain. You could ride on a trainer in the winter or stick to the road, but if you like to be outside and can't imagine spinning indoors, a fat bike lets you stay outside all year. Do you live somewhere that it gets muddy? The low pressure and float of a fat tire actually kind of keeps you from sinking into the mud and won't leave ruts. You still need to obey normal trail etiquette and rules, but when the trail is open and has some muddy sections, you'll find you can ride through the messy spots without really causing any rutting or getting too dirty yourself. What about the rest of the year when you could ride a normal mountain bike? You can still ride a fat bike and you'll find it's incredibly fun. These bikes are kind of the monster trucks of the mountain bike world and make you feel like you can charge through rock gardens and gnarly stuff with reckless abandon. Number 2, fat bikes are great for beginners. I've ridden with quite a few first-time mountain bikers, and they tend to always comment on how unnerving it is to feel the bike moving so much underneath you as you ride. A fat bike smooths out the trail. You don't get all the feedback or feel the bike moving side to side as you ride over loose or rocky terrain. This can really help beginners to feel more confident and focus more on what's coming up on the trail. Fat bikes also provide a ton of traction while climbing, descending, cornering, and that added traction makes up for the lack of technique a new rider has and allows them to get comfortable with all the other aspects of riding a bike on the trail. Number 3 is that fat bikes are a great one-bike option. You can ride the fat tires year-round in all conditions, but the great thing about all of that clearance in the frame is that you can also run an alternative tire and wheel sizes if you want something a little quicker. Fat bikes that are designed around narrower 4-inch tires work well with a 27.5 plus wheel set or a normal 29er wheel, while the bikes with larger clearance work great with a 29 plus wheel set. I really love 29 plus tires, and so I have a second wheel set for my Surly ice cream truck that's a 45mm wide rim and has 3-inch tires on it. I ride these the majority of the time in the summer and find them more nimble than the full fat setup. It makes me feel like I have a second bike altogether. I also usually run a rigid fork for the winter and a suspension fork for the rest of the year, which makes the two setups feel even more different. So if you don't want to ride a fat bike all year, you can still have fat tires for the winter and a 29er, 29 plus, or 27.5 plus bike for the rest of the year. Reason number 4, fat bikes help you get into shape. Fat bikes tend to be heavier because they need more frame material to clear the big tires. The wheels and tires are also just a lot heavier and slower rolling than a normal bike. This doesn't make it any less fun to ride, but it does make it more of a workout. I had a friend who used to say, ride fat to get fit, and I definitely think that's true. When I ride my fat bike consistently, I find that I get in much better riding shape and have more endurance than if I just ride my cross-country bike all the time. Riding in the snow or on sand is also no walk in the park. You may be floating on top, but that stuff is still soft and makes each pedal a little more difficult than on a hard surface. Some of my most physically demanding rides I've ever done have been on snow. The last reason you should get a fat bike is that they're just fun. Yeah, this is basically just my opinion, but I know a lot of other people feel the same way. The lack of suspension, the loud hum of the big tires, it just takes you back to simpler times and makes for a weirdly fun experience. Like I said before, it's like driving a monster truck. It makes you feel a little bit invincible. You really need to ride one to understand what I'm talking about, but there's definitely a fun factor that comes into play when you ride a fat bike. So if you're in the market for another bike or looking for your first one and don't know what to get, I'd highly recommend getting a fat bike. I've had one as my primary bike for more than 3 years now, and I can't imagine not having one. It allows me to ride all year, no matter the conditions. It keeps the number of bikes I own to a minimum, helps me get in shape, and most importantly, it's so fun to ride. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.